In the early morning hours of May 30th, 2019, a small group prepared to leave the city of Zaporozhye, headed for the gray zone, the line of conflict in eastern Ukraine. The group consisted of Ukrainian pastors and church workers who make up the SGA-sponsored Crisis Evangelism Team, Americans from Slavic Gospel Association, and Mark Buzetta from World Challenge. After a 3-hour drive over rough roads, we arrived at the small city of Avdiivka, only about a mile from the fighting. To put things in context, this is an area of extreme poverty. Buildings are marked with bullet holes and destruction caused by shelling. Most of the people who live here are unable to leave due to financial constraints and the simple lack of any place to go. Some of the people are totally alone. They don't get any support from their loved ones or the government. Add to this the scarcity of food stores and transportation. So this is why the SGA-supported crisis evangelism teams make the journey to this dangerous area. Several times a week, members from the Zaporozhye-based team travel to the gray zone to distribute food and much-needed hygiene items. They build relationships and bonds with these people, with the goal of reaching them with the gospel. On this day, our first stop was the small church in Avdiivka, the central base of operations for the area. There was a quick briefing, prayer, and then out to the visits. The first visit took us to the home of Ludmila. Her house was hit by a shell in 2017. She and her husband were in the next building, only a few feet away, and barely escaped injury. Some of the team helped put out the fire and have continued to visit on a regular basis since then. Her husband died about 6 months ago, and she is now living alone. Next was the home of Diana. She and her daughters just moved to this house from a place that was closer to the fighting. Diana said they only hear the fighting now, whereas before they could actually see it and feel it. She was very grateful for the assistance. The next location required driving down a tree-lined road that passed right through a minefield. The village of Aputin was an ideal retirement community until the conflict blocked the access to the city of Donetsk, only a few miles to the east. Several retirees live in this bombed-out apartment building without electricity and only undrinkable water from a well. Some are on meager pensions, but there are not a lot of options to move to a different location. In fact, most of the people we talk to actually desire to stay here, in spite of the circumstances. They consider this their home. The fresh bread and other humanitarian items were much needed and much appreciated. From there, we drove to the city of Marinka, about an hour away. We stopped at the civil administration building and picked up a local guide named Olga, who guided us to the next 2 visits. She took us to the home of Vera, who we learned had lost her husband and son, shot, while working in their own yard. Another son was injured and is permanently disabled. Vera pointed out the damage caused by the explosions and the rocket strikes and expressed her loneliness and loss. She graciously accepted the assistance and the bread and was thankful for our visit. This was the first time the team had visited Vera. After a quick stop at the local house of prayer, also marked with a bullet strike, Olga took us to the second new contact, a mother named Tatiana. We found her at home with her 3 children. The outside of her house has just been repaired from the damage of the conflict. Everywhere you look, there is evidence of this war. For the last visit of the day, we drove another 30 minutes to a town called Krasnohorovka, very close to the front. We met Nina and Natasha with her 2 daughters, and also gave them the humanitarian aid and the bread. It is difficult to imagine these precious little ones growing up in the midst of this unstable and dangerous area. Before the team headed back to Zaporozhye, we stopped at an abandoned apartment building that had been hit with a tank shell. The impact and fire opened up 3 floors of the second-floor apartment. The report was that no one died, but there were injuries. 4 hours later, back at the hotel, Dima shared with us the importance of the support that comes from America to help these people in their need and reach them with the gospel. Special thanks to World Challenge for their much-needed help, and to Mark for coming with us on this unique visit to the gray zone of eastern Ukraine.